Hi kids, welcome to another Kids Central Online. I'm so glad that you have joined me on this Sunday morning. As you guys can see, I have a different background, and I've told you before that sometimes I create these videos right in my own home. We learned last week that God provided a wife for Isaac. We're going to be talking about Isaac's children today. Do any of you guys know what their names are? Yes, Jacob and Esau. So we'll get to that in a little bit. First, we're going to practice our memory verse. Do you guys have it memorized by now? I hope so. This is our last week with this memory verse, and then we're going to be going on to another one. Let's see if you guys can fill in all the words that I leave out. I'm going to leave a lot more out today. Let's see if you can do it. Here goes. Jesus said, whoever will never, John 6:35. Those were quite a few words to fill in. I hope you guys got it. All right, let's say the verse together. Jesus said, I am the bread of life. Whoever comes to me will never be hungry again. John 6, verse 35. Great job, you guys. What a wonderful verse to tuck away in your mind and in your heart. Whenever you are feeling dissatisfied, unhappy, maybe angry, do you know you can remind yourself of this verse and you can comfort your heart with the fact that Jesus is everything we need. He truly is the only person, the only thing that satisfies us and brings us lasting joy. All right, let's move on to our story today. Our big idea is the story of Jacob and Esau. Now, Jacob and Esau are older in this story. So Isaac got married to Rebekah. They had two boys whose names were Jacob and Esau. This story is found in Genesis chapter 25, verses 19 through 34. So if you'd like to go and grab your Bible, go ahead and then you can follow along with me. I'll pause for a moment. Okay, let's jump into the story. Isaac was 40 years old when he married Rebekah. The years went by, but Rebekah did not have any babies. This sounds kind of familiar. Who else didn't have any babies for a long time? Yes, Sarah. She was barren. That means not having any babies. So Isaac asked God to bless them with children. The Lord heard Isaac's prayer, and soon Rebekah became pregnant. She didn't know it at first, but God gave her twin boys. Before they were born, the two babies struggled inside her belly. It was like they were wrestling inside her. They made Rebekah a little nervous, so she prayed to the Lord and asked him what was happening. The Lord said to her, 2 nations are in your belly, and 2 peoples from within you shall be divided. The one shall be stronger than the other. The older shall serve the younger. We'll talk a little bit more about that later. When the 2 boys were born, they were very different. The first boy had red hair all over his body, so they named him Esau, which means hairy. Right behind him was his brother. And do you know when his brother was born, he was holding on to Esau's foot, the heel of his foot. They named this boy Jacob, which means heel grabber. It seemed he was trying to keep his brother from being born first. Esau grew up and became a hunter, a man of the outdoors, and Jacob was quiet and preferred to stay at home. As they grew older, Isaac loved his son Esau and the meat from the animals he hunted. Rebekah loved her son Jacob, who spent time with her around the tents. One day, Jacob was at home cooking a stew while Esau was out in the field. When Esau came home, he was very tired. He saw the red stew his brother was making and said, "Let me eat some of that red stew, for I am exhausted." Jacob made Esau a deal. If Esau agreed to sell Jacob his birthright, he could have some of the stew. You might be asking yourself, what is a birthright? The birthright was a special honor that belonged to the firstborn son. So Esau traditionally would get the birthright. It meant that he would have a greater inheritance when his father died. He would have a greater portion of what his father owned than the younger, Jacob. But Esau didn't care. He told Jacob, "Look, I'm so hungry. I'm about to die." Do you think he was exaggerating a little bit? Yeah, do you ever do that? Do you ever say, "I'm starving. I'm dying of thirst"? Do you ever say that to your mom or dad? I know my kids do sometimes, but they're exaggerating. That's probably what Esau was doing here. So Esau said, "Look, I'm so hungry. I'm about to die. What good is a birthright to me?" Jacob challenged him to make an oath to keep his promise. Esau was so hungry that he foolishly agreed and sold his birthright to Jacob for a piece of bread and a bowl of stew. Esau was saying, "Sure, go ahead. Have the inheritance that belongs to me. I don't care. I just want some stew and bread right now." Do you know that's called instant gratification? It means Esau went for something that would satisfy him immediately. He didn't look down the road to what would be good for him for a much longer time. So let's talk about a couple of things in the story. God knew ahead of time that Esau was going to serve Jacob. Even though Esau traditionally would have the birthright and the greater inheritance, God told Rebekah that Esau would be serving Jacob. So a little bit more about the birthright. When the father would die and all the inheritance, the wealth and the power would go to the older son, that meant to everyone else in the family that they would be in service to the older son. They would serve him and he would be the one to make decisions in the family and kind of oversee everything in the family. But God had told Rebekah, like I already said, that Esau would serve Jacob. This went against the tradition. This flip-flopped things. It's not what traditionally happened in this culture. There's a good chance that Jacob knew about this. Maybe his mom told him that Esau would serve him one day. So Jacob took advantage of Esau when he came out of the field that one day hungry and tired and wanting some of Jacob's stew. So let's finish reading. Did you know that this story is told again in the New Testament? Today we're reading from the Old Testament, and again it's told in the New Testament. Paul told the Romans that it was God's plan for Esau to serve his younger brother Jacob. That's found in Romans chapter 9. God wanted everyone to know that he didn't have to follow the traditions of man and choose the oldest son. In fact, even before they were born, God planned to use Jacob to continue the covenant that he had made to Abraham and Isaac. Do you guys remember what that covenant promise was? Yes, that God would make a great nation from Abraham's children, and that Jesus would come from that nation. God planned to use Jacob to continue that promise. See, in this way, God was telling everyone, Rebecca and Isaac, and us today, that it was God's choice of who would serve who. See, it wasn't based on Jacob's good works, because we see in this story that Jacob was a little bit of a deceiver. He was a manipulator, meaning he took advantage of his brother and tried to get something, the birthright, in his own way. God didn't give the birthright to Jacob and choose him because of his character or anything he did. But God chose him in his mercy, in his goodness. The same is true for us. When God saves us through Jesus, it's not based on our good works. It's not based on anything we've done, because we are like Jacob. We deceive ourselves by telling ourselves that other things than God are good for us. We manipulate situations and try to take advantage and do things in our own way, like Jacob did. But when God rescues us through faith, through belief in Jesus, he does it because he is merciful and he is good. It's not based on who we are or what we have done. That's a wonderful, wonderful truth to cling to. That's our Bible story today. We're going to get more into this story next week. So stay tuned as to what happens next in the story of Jacob and Esau. I've loved spending this time with you guys. Have a wonderful Sunday afternoon, and I will see you right back here next week. Bye.